have been being replaced by online lecture. Student experiments and research in laboratories and other activities have also been readjusted their procedure to fit the procedure that can prevent transmission of the virus. Especially in education activities before the pandemic, online course is a type of course that was developed and adapted by university to achieve learning goal effectively and efficiently on some specific lecturer. However, the development of online courses in Indonesia university is facing challenges, problems, and fortunately, the development and implementation of online courses are accelerating due to COVID-19 pandemic. Various elements have greatly influenced the success of implementing academic activities with this new mode, such as information technology and computer infrastructure, methodology, procedure, and quality assurance. Not many universities have conducted online-based academic activities well and achieved their goal successfully. Given that we do not yet know when the pandemic will end, we need to redesign online-based academic activities, especially educational activities, so that the output and outcome are in line with our education goal. Of course, an internal quality assurance system must be in place to ensure the achievement of the determined outcome of online-based education. Furthermore, an external quality assurance system such as accreditation is also needed to accommodate the change in learning mode so that it can suitably evaluate the quality of online-based education. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the webinar participants, the Director General of Higher Education are aware of the problem faced in implementing this online-based academic activity. Several universities in Indonesia have made strong effort to develop online-based academic activities, especially online-based education, to be implemented suitably, and the results are within expectation. In the context of continuous quality improvement of the implementation academic activity, especially online-based education, Director General of Higher Education, in collaboration with DAAD, organizing the seminar series, and today is the second one, and then followed by 26 and then 27. Throughout the webinar, we, on behalf of Director General of Higher Education, Ministry of Education and Culture, would like to thank DAAD, Pak Thomas, Director of DAAD Jakarta, and also we would like to distinguish speaker today with us, Ms. Maria Kelo, the Director of the European Association for Quality Assurance in Higher Education, or ENQA, and also Mr. Ronnie Heintze, the Senior Consultant or Commissioner for International Affairs, Agency for Quality Assurance through Accreditation of the Study Program, or AQAS. Prof. Basaruddin, the Director of the Executive Board, National Accreditation Agency for Higher Education, or BANPT. Also, Professor Dr. Hazman Shah Abdullah, the Technical Advisor to the ASEAN Quality Assurance Network, or AQAN, and Dr.Yulia Hendri Yeni, the Associate Professor in Marketing at the Faculty of Economics, Andalas University. And also, of course, we also thank to our Indonesia team, which is a joint team with the Director General of Higher Education from UGM, IDP, UI, UB, and also UII, UEE. Hopefully, this webinar can contribute to the improvement of the quality of higher education in Indonesia during the pandemic period and beyond. So thank you so much. Thank you for your kind attention and welcome to join this webinar. Billahi taufik wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Aris, for these inspiring words, and we're really glad to have you with us and to have this partnership. So, on behalf of the DAAD, I'm also very proud to welcome you all to this joint seminar series with the Ministry of Education and Culture's Directorate General of Higher Education, DICTI. This series was actually born out of the idea to showcase the current situation at higher education institutions and other stakeholders, both in Europe and Southeast Asia, specifically Indonesia as the largest country in the region, and also to provide participants with an understanding of how this crisis not only affects us all, but also how we can learn from it and emerge stronger, more dynamic, more digitalized, and as more agile institutions and individuals. DAAD and DICTI, as was introduced in yesterday's kickoff session, can build on decades of cooperation and trust. The DAAD Jakarta office is celebrating its 30th anniversary this year in Indonesia after it opened its doors in 1990. And even though we cannot have a proper party as originally planned with all our partners, alumni, and scholarship holders, we are happy that thanks to digitalization, we have at least this seminar series as a little substitute. One of DAAD's outstanding programs in the field of international academic cooperation and education management is DIAS, which stands for Dialogue on Innovative Higher Education Strategies. This flagship program is jointly coordinated by the DAAD and the German Rectors Conference, ARK, and funded by the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, the so-called BMZ. DIAS offers a bundle of measures, training courses, dialogue events, projects, and partnerships that all foster professionalization of institutional management processes, the alignment of education to international quality standards, and the strengthening of research capacities. Moreover, DIAS alumni are supported to pass on their acquired knowledge with further multiplication on a national level. Building on the results and experiences gained in higher education management within the frameworks of the DIAS program, DAAD uses expertise globally in the fields of quality assurance and also qualifications frameworks in EU programs like AQAS, the harmonization of African higher education, quality assurance and accreditation, and of course, most important for this region, the EU Share, the European Union support to higher education in the ASEAN region. Since 2011, the so-called ASEAN QA, one of the largest DIAS projects, has trained hundreds of higher education managers in the fields of internal and external quality assurance via its trademark Train IQA course. Many of you will of course also be familiar with the International Dean's Course for Southeast Asia, another classic in the DIAS repertoire that has produced numerous excellent alumni, many of whom went on to take up senior management positions in their respective institutions and countries in Southeast Asia. The strengths of this program are manifold. It allows German and European HEIs to design their own projects and implement them together with Asian partners. That means DIAS measures are adaptive, never prescriptive, and can provide support in a highly targeted manner, unlike many other top-down technical cooperation facilities. Of course, same as all our programs, DIAS has taken a hard hit by COVID-19. Physical events, the backbone of international cooperation, can no longer be conducted as borders have been closed and physical distancing measures have been imposed, and many of us continue to work from home rather than at our offices. That, however, also means that we have opportunities for even closer contacts and connections. When else was it possible to see your cooperation partner's living room and the occasional Zoom-bombing child happily playing in the background? Joking aside, DIAS has shifted online very quickly, and now we conduct our events via various channels, Zoom, WebEx, Adobe Connect, what we use today, and others. Not all is well and happy. We all suffer from austerity measures, an insecure future, and the looming threat of declining international cooperation, which is why it is more important than ever that we stay in touch through events and seminars like this one. Without much delay and further words, I would now like to introduce our session for today under the title Ensuring Quality in Crisis, Policy, Practice and the Future of EQA. As you can see, today's focus is very much on the regulatory and, if I may say so, the watchdog side of things. How can external quality assurance agencies support higher education institutions in times of crisis in upholding and ensuring the highest standards of education delivery? What are challenges and also opportunities from this sudden shift to digital tools and processes, and are there different responses to those challenges from different countries and regions? This and more we will hear today from our distinguished panel of speakers whom you have heard from Aris before. Before we finally start with the content, please allow me to make one more moment of your time to make some housekeeping announcements. You will see that there is a Q&A box which you have actively used already on the bottom left, which I highly encourage you to use in case you have questions to the speakers. Please use this box instead of the chat function in order to ensure your question is seen by the speakers and myself as the moderator. Also, all of you had the opportunity to submit questions and comments via the registration form before the event. We have carefully analyzed these questions and will include them in the discussion later on based on a summary of themes and topics which came up most. I would also like to highlight our privacy and data protection statement. Here we need all of your cooperation in order to record and later on potentially publish this seminar in YouTube. Please fill in and submit the consent form through the link in the notes box so that we may use the content of this seminar for the benefit of other audiences. During or after the session, please also submit your feedback through the link provided in the notes. And now, last but not least, it is my great pleasure to introduce our first distinguished speaker, Ms. Maria Kelo. Maria Kelo is currently serving as the Director of the ENQA Secretariat, the European Association for Quality Assurance in Higher Education, based in Brussels, Belgium. She has a wide range of experience related to higher education, and her tasks with ENQA include to manage the work of the Secretariat, act as a secretary to the ENQA board, and to support and coordinate ENQA member agencies to manage their projects and represent the association at events like this one. Previously, she worked as a senior officer for the Academic Cooperation Association, where she was also actively involved as an expert in higher education policy developments, reforms at national and European levels, like the Bologna process. So, please, Maria, warm welcome to Brussels, and the screen is yours.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. I would like to start by thanking the DAAD for this very kind invitation. It truly is both a pleasure and a privilege to join all of you this morning here. Of course, I'm joining from Europe. The light has just appeared. We were still in the darkness a few minutes ago, but I greet all of you in your afternoon, and I hope you will have a good session. I will give you some ideas of how we at the European level, our member agencies reacted to the beginning of the COVID crisis, and how do we see that as helping us to develop new longer-term strategies for external quality assurance in Europe. What I would just like to add to Sebastian's introduction very briefly is that ENQA is a membership organization of quality assurance and accreditation agencies in Europe, and we have over 50 members and another 50 organizations that are our affiliates. So when I speak of the experience, I speak from what I've heard from the agencies. We haven't been able yet to carry out a comprehensive analysis. We felt that in the midst where everything was happening, we couldn't really bother the agencies with a lot of big surveys, etc. We will be doing that over the winter, so in a few months' time. But we have organized a sharing of experiences by asking agencies to send us brief updates on what they are doing and how they are reacting, and also a few webinars in which we collected information. So in one of our first webinars we had with the CEOs of the quality assurance and accreditation agencies, where we discussed with them what is their strategic choice at this moment of time in the spring, and how did they see the role of agencies in this crisis. And what we could really see that the priority of the agencies was on being flexible and supportive towards the higher education institutions, so as to allow the institutions to focus on addressing the current situation and planning, of course, in the spring for the coming academic year. It was not a moment to go and doubt or check or ask for further information from the agencies. It was really a moment to reassure, also telling the institutions that if they had to move online, which most of them of course did, that would not have at least an immediate impact on anything that was an accredited program. So they shouldn't worry about that at that moment. And of course, the agencies were also good catalysts for advice and support, in particular on e-learning, e-assessment, students' rights in this situation, what could be the quality concerns and how to address those in a light manner in this moment. So many agencies published some recommendations, guidelines, they organized training webinars for institutions, etc. So it was very much a support approach. And of course, they also played a role in providing information to the stakeholders, so publishing information, sharing information, and so on, and also a dialogue and catalyst of this dialogue between the national stakeholders and the decision makers, because there were clearly many issues where regulations or even laws needed to be adjusted or specific provisions made for this situation. Some needed to, for some countries, the evaluation cycle is stated in the law, and of course the extensions had to be approved or made possible at the legal level, and also simple things such as physical meeting requirements. In many countries, it was not legal to have an accreditation commission, for example, to meet online. So all the decision-making bodies, for example, couldn't have held legally valid meetings in this time without legal changes. So there was a lot of that at the beginning. And of course, then what had to happen is, what do you do? That's the main activity of the agencies. What do you do with the reviews? And we could really see, of course, there's two main approaches. One is the postponement of the reviews, which was clearly initially the preferred option. We didn't know, nobody knew, and we still don't know how long this will last. But at the beginning, let's say we were perhaps quite optimistic that it would be a question of a few months, perhaps. So the postponement seemed like a reasonable option. However, with the prolongation of the crisis, agencies are more and more moving their external quality assurance activities online, with the mid-2021 perspective by now in their mind. But also we see that it's mostly a hybrid approach. So smaller and lighter procedures such as initial accreditation, follow-up, or program reviews tend to be more often than not moved online, whereas many agencies might be still hesitant. I need to speak a bit louder. Okay. Some agencies are still a bit hesitant to move larger institutional or full reviews online, or reviews of programs that actually really would require a physical presence, like medical and lab-based program. But this is also shifting. People are finding proxies for visits, such as video recordings of the campus and all kind of virtual visits, so that we can be sure that the accreditation is not unnecessarily or too long prolonged and extended, even in this situation. And then, of course, moving online means that people need to be informed. What does it mean? So new guidelines, new training of review experts, experimenting with the best tools, technical tools even. And if you're going to ask me, what is the best technical tool? There isn't one. We all have found that out. Every tool has its advantages and disadvantages. And so we just have to work with what we have. And of course, very importantly, addressing safety and confidentiality concerns. So then we asked our members both to submit written contribution, but also in a specific webinar where we discussed online reviews. What should we think about? What should we be really wary about and careful about when we move external quality assurance processes online? And the first very clear point was that all the good practice and all the principles that relate to site visits, they remain relevant and should be respected. The online site visit shouldn't be some kind of a second-class, B-class review. So we have to be equally careful about the selection of the external experts. And in Europe, that also means that every review panel, online or not, has to include a student member. The process has to be independent, it has to be professional. We have to make sure that confidentiality and safety are really respected. So use protected e-tools, find ways to identify participants without a shadow of doubt, etc. And also use the same rigid training and briefing, and perhaps even more importantly in this context than in the past. And also expectation that the participation of different stakeholders, both as reviewers as well as being interviewed during the site visit, should be there. So it shouldn't be a smaller, lighter, etc. What we have found out, and what the agencies have found out for sure, is that the preparation for such an online site visit is at least as labor-intensive as a physical site visit. It's quite heavy for the panel, for the agency, and for the institution, not least because we don't really have a routine for those yet. So everything is a little bit new, and we have to be really sure we make this in a good way. But it also gives us some scope of experimentation of new format and structure of the so-called visit. Because what people think, maybe this 3-day on-site visit couldn't really be so usefully transformed into online visit one-on-one. Maybe we need a different structure, shorter sessions in the longer period of time, and so on. So we don't really have an analysis or answer what is really the best way to do an on-site online site visit, but we will be analyzing that also in a short term. We also have discussed issues of cost and validity. And because the workload remains the same, there's quite an agreement that the fees for the experts shouldn't or couldn't be lowered. Of course, the travel costs, which are usually on real cost basis, will be reduced. And also the ecological element of lesser travel has been quite remarkable and has made agencies and stakeholders to think what really is the best way in the future. It's also a strategic issue not to lower the cost, because that also contributes to the impression that this is really a serious review, has all the quality criteria as a physical site visit. So it's not a discounted one. And we need to make sure that those who take an online site visit will not be penalized by that. So it has to have the same validity, same duration of validity, etc. That's what we recommend. We also agree that these meetings shouldn't be recorded, these online site visits, because we don't record the on-site visits. Why do it now? There are big issues of privacy and permissions, and also fear that the participants might not be quite as open if it was recorded. And to make sure that nobody's getting off, somebody getting offline actually impedes the note taking, to have simply double note taking or double hosting of the sessions. So these are kind of very practical, small ideas that have come up so far. But what about e-learning itself? Well, you might wonder what the picture is doing there. But I did think of this. Rome was not built in a day. And good e-learning programs are not built in a day either. They're not built in a few weeks, and maybe not even in a few months. So I think it's very important to remember that while some quality concerns about the move to online provision have been raised in Europe, especially by ministries perhaps, by students, what does it mean? Is it as good? What happens to me, etc.? We have to remember that these COVID-19 adjustments are not really e-learning necessarily. They are often simply a better than nothing solution. So instead of not giving anything to the students, moving the lectures online, while it might not be a fully fledged, well-planned, technologically 100% sound e-learning program, is better still than nothing. So in these times of crisis, we really have to rely on the good basis of trust that has been built between the agency and the institutions and the society. This trust that can carry over this period of crisis. And we have to invest on dialogue and communication rather than on checking and policing. Of course, this doesn't mean that whatever has been provided online now in this emergency situation should in a few years' time, when the crisis is over, just slip into being an accredited e-learning program. Then at that point, we really need serious monitoring in the midterm to ensure the quality of those that will remain or become real e-learning programs. So we have really seen this. We go from firefighting, I said, to a longer term strategy. And what does it mean in the longer term impact for quality assurance? We don't really know, but it really has been an opportunity to rethink our reviews. What is the role of the experts? How should what is their role in the site visit? What's the purpose of the site visit? Is it to check facts or is it to have a dialogue? Can the content be a bit different? Could we collect more information online? Have the basics checked in that format? What is the duration structure? All these things. It really is an opportunity. You would say that's quite self-evident, but we are so used to a certain way of doing external quality assurance that it took a big thing like this to really shake our certainties. And really rationalizing travel overall. What is really necessary? What brings added value? And what is just a habit? I think there is for the moment quite a wide agreement that what we see as the future is a hybrid model. Maybe we have different approaches between online and physical, between different procedure types, maybe by origin of reviewers, which will also open the door to use international experts more often for countries that might not have the resources to do so that for all of their procedures, usually, if they are face-to-face. And also by purpose and stage of the process. So like I mentioned, fact collection may be checked virtually, verification, and then dialogue really during the site visit. And of course, we need to prepare guidelines for this circuit practice and so on. So as I know that my time is coming to an end, I would just summarize really. So we've really seen these three phases in this. First, give space and time for the institution. Then we need to move into examine, analyze, and monitor, and then seriously consider and eventually reconsider the existing external QA methods and ask some tough questions for the future. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Maria. That was really interesting and enlightening. I took out some things. I like that you said it took a big thing like this to shake our ways. And I have to say, I also realized this in our own work. And I also like that you said that the future is probably a hybrid model and that you highlighted the ecological aspects and probably the need for less traveling also in the future, now that we have changed our ways and have gotten used to not travel so much. So thank you very much for that, Maria. This was more or less the meta level perspective, let's say from a European level, and we're now zooming in to another European AQAS. And I would like to call on Dr. Ronny Heintze to turn on his camera and join me for the session. Ronny Heintze is Senior Consultant and Commissioner for International Affairs at the Agency for Quality Assurance through Accreditation of Study Programs, in short AQAS, in Cologne, Germany, the lovely city of Carnival. Ronny works with AQAS for more than 10 years already, and his international experience covers projects across Europe, Asia, the Arab world, and South America, so truly global, including projects for the European Commission with assignments in Egypt, the Republic of Moldova. He's also consultant to the Turkish Higher Education Quality Council and since 2018, a board member of the Europe Consortium for Accreditation ECA. After stations at the University of Bonn and Erfurt, he currently also teaches about the United Nations at the University of Trier in Germany. He holds a master's degree in political science. Ronny, I would hand over to you now. Very excited to have you with us. Thank you, and go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Sebastian, for this very nice introduction and a very good afternoon. By now, the daylight really has come up here in Europe, so I take that as a very positive thing. We talk about quality assurance and the sun comes up, which I think is very encouraging. So thanks also for DAAD for inviting me and the ministry for giving that opportunity. I have to admit that presenting and talking after following Maria is equally an honor as challenging after such a European heavyweight in the system. as ENQA is a very important entity here. But I will share the perspective now much more of an agency, like one of the member agencies of ENQA. So I'll try to be practical in some of the considerations when I think about external quality assurance. I think when the crisis hit, what matters to external quality assurance is three levels. The one is we as quality assurance agency were equally hit by the crisis. That means we were challenged with the questions of how do we organize our workflow, can we work remotely, and how digital are we, and so that we can continue our work. I have to admit that AQAS, we were very happy, we were very advanced, because we could always work from anywhere in the world. So the level of preparation there was quite good, and I will not focus on this area too much, because I would say this hits external quality assurance as any other business. All of a sudden you have to change your work habit. The second area where I think there is a challenge and there is an impact is on the subject of what we work with. This is higher education. The programs, the institutions were challenged, and they were heavily impacted. So they moved to emergency digital responses, emergency online teaching, new teaching and learning formats, and I think this will be a long-term topic for quality assurance, for external quality assurance. How will higher education change in that area, and how can external quality assurance be supportive and not be an extra burden in that change and that adjustment? And what I will focus on most is how did the crisis impact the method that we're using, because the very traditional thing is we do a review, we do a site visit, we do a report, and this is something that we had to change because traveling became a challenge and the risk, and we couldn't do that. So what was the first reaction, at least that we saw and that we basically implemented? The first approach was an emergency response, and it was keep the system alive and don't change too much. So we didn't know how to react, what to do, how to best do. So it was a little bit, Maria called it firefighting. So the immediate reaction was we postponed site visits. We couldn't go, so we basically said no idea how long it's gonna last. Let's postpone it. We had accreditation periods that ended. So the easy approach was let's just extend the accreditation periods. Once we're back to normal, we can handle it. Many of the solutions we found were improvised, and what we could also find that if we had a desk-based review, the impact was very low because it did not really create any change for that method. In Germany, we have a very low number of desk-based reviews. As in external quality assurance, the site visit is the standard and the requirement. But I know from colleagues in other parts of Europe that they have part of their work which is fully desk-based, and there is actually absolutely no change to that. So that was the emergency response. But then, of course, people and also we recognized this is not going to be over so quick, so postponing and extending accreditation periods might not be so helpful. We implemented new policies to replace site visits and partially operate desk-based where we could not travel and do a site visit. We developed quite complicated formats of reviewers asking questions via email. We collect all that, we send that to the institution, then the institution returns all the answers. I would say that was a very early stage of response because it has some pros, it has some cons, and by now this is an exception what we do, because we also moved to virtual site visits and online meetings, and I do honestly believe this is bringing many new opportunities when we find a way to do that professionally, and I would say by now we have found a way to operate these virtual site visits professionally. What are the chances that I do see in a more virtual-oriented reality of external quality assurance and site visits? Clearly, there is a financial impact. People travel less, so institutions do not have to cover the travel costs. And that is clearly a saving for the institutions, and that has an impact for overall strategy, particularly if you look at governmental institutions, at public institutions, state funding. So that is a clear consideration, and we feel that the institutions address that topic with us as well. It has an ecological impact, particularly, I mean, AQAS, we're also accrediting outside of Germany, and if you don't have to have international flights, you clearly see an ecological impact as well. And very practical, it is less travel time. So if you have a 2-day site visit, it can mean for an expert to give 4 full days, because there is 1 day to get there, 2 days to work, and 1 day to return home. So there is a little bit more flexibility, because this is time that people can use. And when we work, and I take that as a chance, I later talk about that as well as a risk. If people work from home and have their site visits at home, they have off times with their family. So basically, the meeting is finished, we wrap it up, the screen goes off, and you're with your family. If you're hundreds of kilometers away, you're not with your family, you're with the colleagues, and then you are in a hotel, and you are still in a professional surrounding. So I think there is chances as well for work-life balance. Flexible timing options, and also for the institution, the logistical on-site requirements are much lower. At least logistical, they need to do technology, etc., all that. But if you have a site visit, it also means that there is stakeholder interviews, and that also means you have to have all the logistics. Where do the people come? Who greets them? How do you do that on-site logistic? So that's different now. There are also limitations, and I think what we should not forget is quality assurance, external quality assurance. We're not the first who basically experience that a site visit and that a virtual meeting is different from a real meeting. So, and everything that is true for the challenges of virtual meetings in other contexts is equally true for what we do. So, particular challenges that I do see is we do have limited options to review evidences, particularly when it comes to resources. When you need to look at facilities, at rooms, at labs, whatever way you find to replace the traditional site visit, it will only be a proxy. So it can be almost as good, but it's very different. And we have experiences where we can clearly say if experts enter a room and stand in a room, their experience of the resources is different than any very progressive format you can come up with. The dynamics of the discussion and within the panel, they change if it happens virtually. We work with peers, so we work with experts in the field. So every panel has a different dynamic, and this dynamic develops differently if the people don't meet and if they only meet virtually. It is an audio and a video experience instead of a true experience, and that changes the way things are discussed. Very often experts say they don't feel the spirit of an institution anymore. And within the diversity in higher education, very often this spirit matters to really understand and to truly assess an institution. Clearly, limitations of technology is an issue. It still happens a lot that people disappear. Sometimes they don't come back. Sometimes there are audio issues they don't hear. We're faced with this, and depending, I mean, while we are based in Germany, it does not mean that internet connection is best in any place here. And what I think is a very important thing that we should not underestimate is there are no longer informal corridor talks. So you reduce the thing to the formal interaction between the panel and the institution and the interviewees. Very often a panel use, like they go out, they wash their hands, they accidentally meet someone, or when they have a walk through the resources, they use that time to come up with a follow-up question they do not want to ask in a formal setting. We're losing all these opportunities. Experiences, and I know I have 4 more minutes to go. Experiences, what we're having is we like it that scheduling works much more flexible. We do not have to have a 3-day site visit in 3 consecutive days. We can have the beginning at day 1, and then we can have a break, and then we can follow up at a later time. It's not the best, but it can be done if there is external requirements forcing us to do so. We find out that the lack of travel time also means that there is a lack of natural preparation time. When people enter the bus or they enter the train, what they usually do is they go through the materials again. So their mindset shifts and they use the travel time to psychologically prepare for the site visit. This time has now reduced from the moment when they basically get up, have their breakfast and sit at the table and start the meeting. So we need to develop different ways to deal with that situation. We need clearer and stricter communication rules because the dynamics is different. And we recognize that virtual meetings are very, very tiring. People sit in front of their screens. If they are on an on-site visit, they can get up. There's different dynamics. In front of the screen, it's just tiring. So we immediately recognized we need to change the break schedule that we have. The positive thing, and I think this is something we recognize, this is an experience, if you read the final report, you do not recognize if this is based on a virtual site visit or on a real site visit, except if you basically really focus on the description. But when you look at all the other criteria we look at, you don't see the difference. Last perspective, we have to think of what this does with our experts. We have the experience that the peers work very professionally, even if we deal with that online, so it works very well, but it has an impact on expert motivation. All the impacts that I said before, it's totally reduced to the content. Very often the peers engage in these reviews also because it's part of professional networking. They get to interact with other colleagues in the panel. We're reducing this, so this is an impact. And there is also something I call online fatigue. When I ask an expert if he or she wants to join a panel, he says, "Thank you very much for inviting me to another of these online meetings that I appreciate so much." And this is the reality that we have to deal with. Yes, I think let's look forward. I think we have to answer the question of how will higher education change as a result of the pandemic, and how do we have to react to that? We have to reconsider, is the site visit still the gold standard, and how much validity do we need to make a good assessment? And how will reviewers engage on the long run with that? And for us particularly is, can we accept outcomes for institutions that we have never seen in real life because we have to go perfectly and virtual 100%? And to come to an end, what are the scenarios? The one scenario, I don't believe it's going to happen. The pandemic is over and we're back to the gold standard of physical site visits for every case. That's an extreme. The other extreme I see is, and people discuss that, the virtual site visit is the new standard, and this is what we will always do. This is the other extreme. I don't think this is very wise. I don't think this is going to happen. I think it's up to us to develop flexible approaches, find out like the virtual site visits and combine them with the later confirmation visits. We have good experiences with virtual review of resources, like we had institutions that have drones to show their labs, etc., and the experts could say, can you move the camera to this end, can you move to that end? And to wrap it up, I think the crisis we're in is clearly also a change. I think it provides us with the opportunity to come from one size fits all. We have that one methodology and we use it, to more customized approaches that are then even more fit for purpose. And with that, I want to finish this quick introduction. Thank you very much, and I very much look forward to the discussion and the questions.
Yeah, Ronnie, thanks a lot. I could see some themes that were, of course, recurring. The ecological impact. I liked it that some of your points were formulated quite, I would say, drastically. You know, do we even need site visits anymore? And I'm sure that I have a lot of points for the discussion. I'm curious to see how the European experience in the shift, so to speak, compares to what we're going to hear now from the Southeast Asian region, especially if we're looking at, let's say, the size of the sectors. Because, of course, with our next speaker, we have a higher education system that even when travel was possible, was already difficult to cover. And I think we're going to have a lot of fruitful exchanges in the discussion later on. To all participants, please, I would like to highlight the question box again. Please use this to also pose questions to speakers. I will pick those up and include them later on in the discussion after we heard the presentation. So, Ronnie, thank you very much for your input. And I would now like to call on Professor Chan Basaruddin. Professor Chan, please join me, turn on your video. Professor Chan Basaruddin is the Director of the Executive Board of the National Accrediting Agency for Higher Education of Indonesia. Thank you. Professor Chan is also a Professor of Computer Science at the University of Indonesia, and he is currently the serving President of the ASEAN Quality Assurance Network, AQAN. His Bachelor of Arts in Mathematics is from Gajah Mada University, his Master of Science, and his doctor's degree is from the University of Manchester in the United Kingdom. He was also Secretary of the Board of Higher Education from 2003 to 2005, and after that the Chairman of the Development Council of the Board of Higher Education since 2015. Professor Chan, screen is yours. I'm very excited to have Indonesian perspective today, and please go ahead.
Thank you, Sebastian. Dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank the DAAD and also the Ministry of Education and Culture for inviting me to share our experience on this webinar, which in the topic I think is very important, how the accreditation agency like BAN-PT should respond to the recent pandemic COVID-19 crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to share our experience and also refer to the general overview that has been nicely put by Maria at the beginning, that for agency like BAN-PT is very, very true, and the decisions sometimes are not that easy to choose from. Let me start by introducing our system, which is quite large, as Sebastian already mentioned. Currently, Indonesian higher education system comprises more than 4,000 higher education institutions. Of course, not all of them in the form of university, and also around 28,000 programs. We call it a study program, and housing more than 6 million students, but supported only by around 300,000 faculty members. In terms of quality assurance, since 2017, the government issued regulation that mandating the internal quality assurance to be put in place for every single higher education institution. As for the external quality assurance, it has been mandatory at both program and institution level since 2012 with the issuance of the Higher Education Act. Now, if you look at the figure that I present, the number of program accredited at the moment already reaching around 23,000, but for the institutions only about 55% already accredited. Now, the pandemic, COVID-19, Indonesia was first reporting the first case, I think it was in 2nd of March 2020. And since then, if we look at the graphic of daily confirmed cases, it is fair to say that, I mean, the Indonesian government or Indonesia is not really fully control of the situation because the cases is still growing up until now. Now, what will be the impact to the education sector and other sector? Currently, major cities like Jakarta are still in a lockdown status. Of course, we do have many islands, small islands, also the rural areas, which is not affected seriously by COVID. But if we are talking about schools and higher education, the government already issued a policy that the schools and higher education should be closed until further notice, when the government can say that the impact of the COVID already under control. So currently, students starting from the even kindergarten, the primary school student, up until the university student are learning from home. Now, the other sectors, I mean, the office, some offices are open but under strict health protocol, but mostly in the big city office, people are still working from home, including us at the BAN-PT itself. How about the higher education status? Well, it varied, of course, from institution to institution, but mostly since early April, some already starting mid of March, the university suddenly switched to online. And this abrupt change is really, you know, a big challenge for everyone. Observed from our discussion with university, they talk about even from the hardware side, like if you don't have enough network to connect, and then internet bandwidth also limited. Even they don't have enough storage, for example, to store the course and content material for learning there. In terms of software, not every university have already got the learning management system, for example, and even the to support the synchronous mode of interaction, like telepresence tools like this one. Well, of course, some of them are for free, but for good quality of interaction, we really need to have the professional and licensed type of tools, and but not every single university can afford to have one. Beyond the software and hardware, I think it's even more important to talk about the learning materials itself. Not every university already have enough experience how to prepare and develop a good learning material for students to do online learning. From the student side, we also can see that there are other dimensions of problem like learning skills. Students are used to with the conventional face-to-face learning, where their studies are very much guided by the lecturers or by the teaching assistant, but suddenly such kind of support is not easily accessible. So they have to try to think, explore their own learning skills and learning path. I mentioned already some students are having difficulties in accessing the course materials or online class because of the internet access is not there, and also the device like laptop. Not every single student can afford to have one. From the faculties, we also learned that they are quite not ready. I mean, they are not quite ready to not even to deliver, but to develop, and also to how do we manage online class and so on and so forth. And from the university management side, also we learned that not every university have already a mechanism how to manage online learning in most effective and efficient way. We learned from one of the university, for example, they are still asking whether to require students to sign the presence list, that kind of protocol which is used to be there for the face-to-face. Because, in Indonesia, there is some kind of standard, national standard, that the minimum participants of the student to be allowed to take the exam, for example, is something like 75%. But suddenly, this kind of thing will have to be changed. And now, how about the quality assurance itself? I would like to look at in two perspectives. First, in terms of the internal quality assurance, which is happening at the individual higher education institution. Well, as far as I can see, most, if not all, universities are still talking about how they can survive under these circumstances. So let alone to talk about how to maintain the quality. So survival is still their first highest priority, so that the quality will come later. We also learned from them that their procedures and also the system were designed for the conventional mode of operation, but suddenly things are changed. So they still have to think how to adjust the procedure for the internal quality assurance system itself. Of course, an exception for institutions who have been offering open and distant learning, like the Open University, for example, they are not badly affected by this kind of change. From the external quality assurance perspective, accreditation, currently Indonesia accreditation system is implemented by two types of agency. BANPT, which is the National Accreditation Agency for Higher Education, established by the government, has the main function to accredit institution, actually the institution level accreditation. While the program level should be done by the, we call it Lembaga Akreditasi Mandiri, or discipline-based accreditation agency, which is established by the society or by the organization related to that particular discipline. But currently, only one of those discipline-based accreditation already operating, which is for medical science and health. But we already got 4 other lembaga akreditasi or the accreditation agency, but they are not operating yet. They are not quite ready to operate. So these 2 agencies that are operating now follow the same procedure of accreditation, which incorporate 2 stages or 2 steps of process, which is desk assessment and on-site visit. Now for BAN-PT, as far as the desk assessment is concerned, we don't have problem at all, because since April 2017, we have already introduced the online desk assessment mechanism. The assessor, the review panel, doing the assessment online. Now, how about the on-site visit? So at the beginning, around March or April, we decided to postpone that, very much like what Ronnie and also Maria already explained before. But since we cannot see the end of this pandemic, so we tried to learn from other agencies and got some very good idea when we joined one of the webinar held by ENQA at that time, that we can actually have almost as effective as the face-to-face one using the virtual or the online site visit. So since then we tried to propose for the new regulation from Accreditation Council, which allow BAN-PT to do virtual site visit as a replacement for the face-to-face site visit. And since June 17, we started doing the online site visit. Of course, for this online site visit, the standard and criteria as well as the instrument used are still using the conventional one. So it is not really designed for the system or for the condition where the university or the higher education institution already implementing the new modality of learning. Now, what are the main or major policies that has been issued by BAN-PT or this agency in response to the pandemic crisis? First, I think also mentioned by previous speaker, we extend the validity of the accreditation certificate. But the extension we do after we carry out some quick assessment on the quantitative data which is available at the National Database for Higher Education. In Indonesia, I don't know when was that, I think since 2006, every single higher education institution have to store their data on this, inside this national database. So based on that, we do some assessment and we have the liberty to determine whether the extension of the validity can be issued or not. Of course, for the first cycle, the university, yes, yeah. So the for the first cycle, of course, we still have to do the process, and that's why the site visit, online site visit, still need to be done. Okay, now I'm running out of time, but I just would like to report that up until 2 days ago, we have conducted 1,053 program visit and 76 institution site visit, which is done totally online. And the online site visit cover a series of interview sessions, a totaling of 16 hours, around that, from 14 to 16 hours of interview, which is, as Ronnie already mentioned, will be very tiring for the university, for the assessor itself. The downside of this virtual visit, of course, will be the infrastructure and also the many burdens that has been experienced by the institution and also the assessor. And finally, in closing, we really have to think how to proceed for the new normal, for the new system. And in Indonesia, I think starting from the instrument and the standard itself need to be revisited. I think that's all my presentation, Sebastian. Thank you, and sorry for this running out of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pachan. I have to say I'm highly impressed by the sheer number of accreditation site visits that BANPT has conducted in the time. 1,053 is really quite a number, and it shows also the size of the Indonesian university system, and it's even higher challenge for only one agency to cover this, and then under pandemic and crisis conditions, so to speak. So I'm very excited to go deeper into this in the discussion, and I would now like to call on a neighboring country, Malaysia, Dr. Hazman. If I may ask you to turn on your camera and join me for the session. Hello, Dr. Hazman.
Hi, can you hear me?
So I will give you a brief introduction on Dr. Hazman. So Professor Hazman Shah Abdullah is technical advisor to the ASEAN Quality Assurance Network, especially on the AQAS, the ASEAN Quality Assurance Framework. He was a professor of administrative sciences at the University of Technology Mara in Malaysia until his formal retirement in 2018, but of course he is still active. During his university tenure, he served as Assistant Vice Chancellor for Quality Assurance, and he was seconded to the Malaysian Qualifications Agency as Deputy Chief Executive Officer for Quality Assurance from 2015 until 2018. He also served as Quality Assurance Expert at ENQA until February this year, and he participated in many international QA agencies, university and program reviews, as well as trainings under the auspices of the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, the Asia Pacific Quality Network, or better known as APQN, the EU Share Project, and of course the ASEAN Quality Assurance Network, where he's still active. He continues to be very active, even though he is formally retired, and I'm really glad to have you with us today, Hazman, for your numerous experiences. And I'm also very curious how the situation in Malaysia compares to the one in Indonesia, especially because Malaysia is a very, is of course a smaller system, and it is, if I may say, probably a bit more centralized. So Dr. Hazman, screen is yours, and thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you, Sebastian. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum, and a very good afternoon or morning, as the case may be. Let me continue with the discussion, talking about the Malaysian experience. The Malaysian experience centers around MQA, but it's not just exclusive to MQA. There are about 22 professional bodies in Malaysia that also do accreditation of professional programs. So this presentation actually is more national, although MQA is still the central part of the presentation. I'll take you through the Malaysian higher education system is nowhere as complex as what the Indonesian system is. We have less than 600 institutions, both public and private. There is a mixture of institutions, as I've laid out there. We have about close to 1.2 million students in the higher education sector, including about 135 international students. We are much smaller. We are not so fragmented like Indonesia, but I can assure you our problems not in any way a lot smaller in complexity. It seems to be the tale of education everywhere. And that's the background. Now, something that is important to note here is even well before 2015, the country has already started the process to digitalize higher education. And by digitizing, I mean it's not just going online, but also to bring technology tools into the classroom, even in your traditional classrooms in terms of assessment, teaching aid, in terms of teaching materials and so on and so forth. So there was already a movement. And in fact, the ministry laid down certain markers for the higher education sector that between 30% or 60% of the courses taught in the universities should be blended in nature. So that has already set the scene. And in many ways, this is prescient to what actually happened in COVID. Many of them were already rehearsing in a much smaller manner in preparation for something like this. And ENQA on its part also has actually unlocked the conventional classroom-based teaching by allowing institutions that are teaching in campus in the conventional mode to have as high as 60% of the courses online. And 80% of the time in a particular course can be devoted to online teaching and learning, and this includes both synchronous and asynchronous teaching and learning as well. So these were some of the preconditions that already existed before pandemic came in. And pandemic, as we know, struck in for us March 18, and we are still in the process. We more or less went into a recovery phase in May, in June, and now we are back to a conditional movement control order, which means in many places that are considered red zone, the restrictions have been tightened, whilst others are enjoying a lot more freedom. And what happened to education sector? When the movement control order, or the lockdown as everybody else calls it, came into being, of course, education went into pause mode. But the education, both schools and higher education were allowed to continue, but online, fully online. And in May, the government relaxed the requirement to allow certain categories of students to return to campus, and so long as they follow the protocols, public health safety protocols. But there was a small number. And at that point, it was decided that up to December 31st, it would be largely online, unless there was some special reasons for students being clinical practice, lab-based equipment, postgraduate students who need to do testing and so on and so forth. So those were given some special dispensation. By and large, the rest had to do it from afar. And now it has also been decided that it will not be November, it not be just December, it may continue to March next year. The online classes will continue. And right now, as we are speaking, because of the sudden spike in cases, we've gone to stricter control in many sectors, including higher education. So that's the uncertainty that everyone is talking about. We're not sure. But what happened during the interim? ENQA issued a series of advisory notes to institutions about online teaching and learning, and introduced a whole lot of flexibilities so that they can continue without any anxieties about the standards and accreditation and so on and so forth. So that helped a lot with the institutions. This is something we call responsible flexibilities. They need to protect the quality of the program as much as possible. But we are always at this point very mindful that there may be areas, types of programs and institutions where there would be a lot of challenges in ensuring that this optimal quality, as Pak Chan mentioned, same experience. And ENQA also organized and engaged the professional bodies to do likewise. So all these professional bodies, soon after the lockdown, our lockdown, started to issue instructions to institutions about how they should proceed. And they were much more guarded about the flexibilities. And I think that is an understandable reaction, given that you're talking about medicine, dentistry, pharmacy, engineering. These are regulated professions. There are a lot of risk involved. They're dealing with lives and people, and therefore, but nevertheless, they also allowed the institutions to proceed with certain types of teaching for certain types of courses while waiting for this to be over for clinical and lab-based practice to come back. So much more guarded than MQA. And MQA itself, initially, like everyone else, went into a cease mode and then came back and started in May, receiving applications as per norm. But because applications were already done online, so this could continue. But in July, I think like BANPT and many other agencies, after having surveyed all over the world, agencies that were beginning to do virtual, they came out with a guideline, a 7-page guideline as to how it might be conducted. And from July on, we started doing, NMK started doing virtual compliance visits or audits, and then followed by full, we call it full accreditation audits through virtual on-site visits. These are by no means as many as BANPT. So it's about 57 done so far. And some of these have already gone through the Accreditation Council and have received accreditation. That's how they have MQS proceeded. And part of the process was actually to look at how institutions looked at this process. So there was a survey done of 188 institutions just as they were preparing for these virtual visits and developing the guidelines. It was surprised 80% of that 188 MQA, VA is MQA virtual accreditation in short. And 80% of these sampled liked it. They were keen to do it. Around 70% thought they were in many ways ready in the sense that most of the documents are already in digital format. So they could easily actually upload and have it available to the assessors very easily without going through much process of digitalizing documents for accreditation's sake. And we can see the number, close to 90% reported that they might even like this to stay post-pandemic. So that was the reaction and some of the meeting tools that they were familiar with and some concerns, suggestions. So the stakeholders seem to be quite keen to do it. In MQA's case, it was 1.5 day affair. There is a preliminary meeting where the assessors virtually meet the institutions to understand better the documentation, the data that is needed to be given to them before the virtual visit and so on and so forth. So there was a coordination meeting that was organized to clear as much as possible before a virtual visit. And there is actually a full day, 1 day visit where you are looking at tours of facilities and also interaction with some of the top management, some of the program leaders, and also staff and students. So it was an abridged. This is not a typical normal visit. It was an abridged visit. And the second day is largely preparing the report and submitting the report. So it's a 1.5 day affair, which is much shorter than the regular audits, which used to take a full two day. And what are some of the positives out of this experiment? Certainly, the virtual on-site visit became shorter. Number one, of course, it also minimized a lot of logistics issues that used to come with organizing experts from different places coming together at a particular point in time. And some of these colleges could be quite far away in the island of Borneo, our Sabah and Sarawak, East Malaysian states. Of course, hotel and travel costs were saved. And also, you could now choose the assessor from anywhere in the country. Used to be the choice is assessors around the vicinity or in the region of the institution. But now you would actually choose because they're all operating online. So distance was not an issue. And And also a lot of the evidence which used to be looked at on-site in a physical visit now was actually available digitally to the assessor. So they could actually look at this before any interaction, any discussion. So that allowed the assessors to look at this and data and understand the data in terms of the requirements and standards without the pressure of a visit. While you're in a visit, you are guided by the schedule and the timing. So here you will have a lot more time to actually look at and analyze. And in many ways, you can actually almost compose a draft report already with concerns and areas noted so that you can actually pursue it. And also now it's possible to think about international assessors. MQA did not have a requirement for neither practice of having international assessors, but now actually that possibility is quite real. You could actually get someone from outside the country to be part of the assessor, which is a good practice to observe, and a lot more insight into what exactly goes on in the sessions, because the MQA staff can actually observe the sessions, and there's a lot of takeaway from this in terms of training. The challenges. Many, some of these already been mentioned, so I would not go into these things, but screen fatigue, no recording, a lot of technical issues. And one thing that was missing was there's a lot of text and data and documents. What was missing is the context, which I think everyone has already mentioned, so I will not go into too much of this. And some future lessons, I think that at the agency level, as Ronnie mentioned, there were a lot of changes to digitalize meetings, working from home, and so on and so forth, and as far as the staff is concerned, which was already taking place to some extent, but I think the pandemic actually accelerated this and created confidence among the staff and management that this can be done safely, responsibly from afar. So I think that's going to be a good thing in terms of work-life balance for the staff. What about virtual visits? I think this is a good time to untangle the mission of EQA with the model of EQA that we have been using all along. This has become tied together and they are inseparable. I think this is an opportunity where now we can say our mission is this, but it doesn't have to be bound to a model. So now we are talking about a virtual on-site model, and we might have to come back and rethink the whole thing afresh rather than using the same template in a virtual setting. I think that's where we're having a lot of issues and problems, not being able to actually feel the place and see the place and experience the culture of the place. And virtual visits, I think moving forward, can also be very selectively done and risk-based. Those institutions that are low risk, maybe virtual visits are a good option. And those that are much more high risk, then I think being present in the place might give the institution a lot more confidence, and also stakeholders a lot more confidence about the outcome. And for higher education in Malaysia in particular, just a minute, I'll finish, Sebastian. There's already demand for a lot of the flexibilities to stay. There are emergency flexibilities responses, but they would like them to stay. Many technical programs have also learned how to do it online. They never thought it was possible, but they managed to do it. So now there will be some lessons to take away in terms of designing and delivering programs. I think, as everyone mentioned, hybrid and blended is the way the future looks like, at least in the immediate future. And standards needs to be actually changed to adapt to this reality. I mean, most institutions were doing both classroom and online learning. So for EQA agencies, you need to develop this ambidexterity in terms of carrying out the work. And a lot of pressure has now come on to EQA bodies, including MQA and institutions, about the quality of teaching that parents actually were able to see for the first time online, which they never had an opportunity before. So there will be a lot of pressure to make sure these people who are conducting the programs online are better trained and able to perform better in an online mode. And with that, I thank you, Sebastian.
Thank you very much, Hazman. There are some points that I would like to highlight because you did focus on, at least I felt more the positive aspects, and I'm quite happy to hear this, that you said some institutions are already calling for this to remain, and I think this is something we will also revisit in the discussion, that this is something to last, and you also highlighted the impact on standards and that there is a need to change, and this is also something I would then carry onward into the discussion, because I'm also really curious about that, and I saw that there were some questions from the audience on standards specifically. But for now, thank you very much, Hazman. I will now move on to our next speaker, again from Indonesia, and this will be a slightly different perspective, if I may say, because it is actually from a university. So, so to speak, the receiving end of a quality assurance assessment, specifically AQAN quality assessment in Indonesia. So I may call on Dr.Yulia Hendri from University of Andalas in Padang, in West Sumatra, Indonesia. Dr. Yulia is an associate professor in marketing at the Faculty of Economics of Andalas University, and she has been with the university since 1990 as part of the academic faculty. She also served as a facilitator of the EQA system and an assessor for BAN-PT since 2015. She got her master's degree from the Institute of Technology in Bandung and her doctoral degree from Australia. She has been involved in QA processes since 2008 and was appointed as the head of quality assurance at Andalas University for 2016 to 2019. She is also a member of the EQA System Instrument Development Team at the Ministry of Technology, Research and Higher Education, where PICTI previously was located until 2019. And she will give us an overview about the ENQA assessment as it was conducted online at her university. Dr. Yulia, please.
Thank you very much, moderator Sebastian. How about my voice? Is clear enough? Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang, salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Very good afternoon and very good morning to all of distinguished participants. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, on behalf of Universitas Andalas, I would like to thank the Director of Student and Learning Affairs that give us chance to share our experience in online ENQA assessment. We hope this short story will give insight for the next study program that want to propose online assessment, especially for ENQA. This is the brief profile of our university, my university. We are public university founded 1955 and then located in Padang, West Sumatra. And we already have ABEP for 3 study program, one ABES 21 for Magister Management study program, and 2 days ago, we get the result from ENQA assessment that I want to share with you today. So totally we got 7 study program that assessed by ENQA. And then we also have 3 study program get EAB. Okay. This is just want to show to you that Universitas Andalas already assessed by ENQA in 2018, but that one is on site assessment. But 2 years later, from 7 to 11 September, we get assessment again, but that one is online. You can see the difference between 2018 and 2020, even though that one is at the same building, but you can see the chair less than before, because some of participants in opening session are home based. Before I continue the story, I would like to tell you about what we feel at the beginning of this online assessment. I already show you that actually the previous assessment is not 7 to 11 September, but that one is 3 to 5 March. Unfortunately, 2 days before arrival of assessor, I got the text from ENQA that asked Andalas, Universitas Andalas about the cancellation of assessment because of pandemic. Even though at that time, Indonesia, there is no case COVID-19 in Indonesia, but the ENQA concerned about this case. So they asked Universitas Andalas, is it okay for us if they cancel the assessment, even though that 2 days more arrival for the assessor? And then you can feel what how to say it, what we feel at that time, because two days we will pick the assessor up to Universitas Andalas, and then after that the ENQA promised that they will put us as a priority for the next assessment. What happened after that? On the middle of May, we got the text from ENQA that offer us, do we agree if they assess us by using online? And then we discussed, and then all of university management agree, and then they sent us the day 7 to 11 September. Okay, this is what I also want to share to you. At the beginning, what is it? I'm not sure enough what I have to tell you about the experience, because like Maria and Ronnie and Pak Chan and Pak Hazman already tell about the online assessment. Actually, even though this is different agency, but they will be the same if we do the online assessment. But after I get this newsletter from ENQA, where they said that Andalas University success. They said Andalas University success to conduct online assessment. I get how to say it, more confident to share our experience with you all. And then another one, why I choose the Faculty of Economics, because at that time we have 2 study programs that assess at the same time. Actually, that one is not usual because we have a management study program and economics. Before, we already get the certification for accounting study program. So I think it will be easy for us to make the comparison between on-site and remote assessment. Okay. Even the previous presenter already mentioned about what is the advantages, what is the limitation of online, but I would like to give you some data that I get from a small survey. This is survey only for 13 respondents, but I give her the criteria. The first criteria, they should involve in both assessment. That means they should involve in online. They should also involve in offline. And then I choose them in different level. The first one from faculty level, from university level, from quality assurance officer, and also from interpreter. So you can see this. For the previous assessment, this one is management of Faculty of Economics. Now they become an interviewee from management study program. And this one, some of them already involved in previous assessment. Now they are the officer of quality assurance. And we are lucky because we have 2 interpreters in our study program that involved in both assessments. So they can give you some insight how the difference between online and offline. And also I include one of vice rector. Before he was a vice rector, but at the last assessment he was interviewee from pharmacy because he is a lecturer. And then I got, you can see this, probably, sorry about this because small. The advantages from the respondent, I got information. Actually, they are the same with the previous presenter. They said that efficient. The online assessment is efficient in terms of cost for accommodation, airfare, food, because usually we have to prepare food for all of interviewee, and then also the ceremonial session for opening session and for closing session. And then that's the opinion, but one of them said there's no difference. I asked why you said that there is no difference. He said that he looked at the process, even though that one is online, but the process is still the same, just the media that different. And then about the limitation, we can guess the first limitation that about time limitation to answer in detail, because if we do the offline, if some interview answer the question, probably his friend, her friend can put more explanation about the answer. That's the opinion. And another one, that's about time consuming, because for online, the day for assessment become 5 days. For site visit, only 3 days. Okay, and then this is the obstacle. Probably all of you can guess that the first obstacle for us is about internet problem, and then another one that's about the professional support for live streaming. Another difference between offline and online, that one is for offline we have to prepare about the live streaming to visit the facility of university. So this is also the obstacle of the online assessment, because sometimes the live streaming not organized professionally. So we suggest that should be professionally. And this is the suggestion. The first one, that's about the more time for live streaming in study program facilities, and then online assessment guideline, and then also about the shorten the schedule. That means from 5 days, sometimes the study program will need to shorter. And then this is from my personal notes. For the study program, I suggest to study program to do the simulation frequently, how to say, more than 2, to get the time, the same time when the assessor asks the live streaming. And then another one, better to not use virtual background, because different interviewee will use different laptop that will have different capacity for virtual background. And then I also suggest about the internet connection, it will be better not Wi-Fi, you can use LAN connection. And then another one, based on our experience, headphone is better than headset, yeah, because how to set the echo, that based on our experience, headphone is better than headset. And then for the ENQA secretariat, we suggest to optimize the local verifier, because in online assessment, the secretariat will provide one local verifier to help assessor about the verify the support document. But because probably we are the first one, for the next assessment, we suggest the ENQA secretariat to optimize the verifier. I think that's all. Thank you very much. And it always seems impossible until it's done. And you know that our online assessment is based on trust. So trust is the first one for online assessment. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Yulia, and very inspiring words. Please stay with me, leave your video on, and now I would like to ask the other speakers to join us again, Professor Chan, Maria, Ronnie, and also Dr. Hazman, because we're coming to our Q&A session. And for all of you who are in the line, we will extend the session a bit because we also started late. And well, I think this is the most exciting part usually. I will do this in 2 ways. First of all, I will provide a summary of questions that were asked by participants and address them to one of you specifically, but also feel free, of course, if you like to answer a question that was directed to somebody else. I will start with one question that goes to all of you at first, because, and of course, as the moderator, I have the right to pick, so I picked the one that I am most interested in. And this is about, we've heard it, standards and also frameworks. We have a framework in Europe, the European Standards and Guidelines. We have a framework in the ASEAN region, ASEAN Quality Assurance Framework, both of which are quite similar. They're very generic. I think all of you are familiar with them. However, do you think that we need an adaptation of one of these or of these frameworks? Or are they generic enough to fit also the context of fully online accreditation or assessments? I think I would probably, ladies first, start with Maria, if you like. So on the ESG, probably.
Yes, thank you, Sebastian. That is indeed a slightly tricky question. Realize the things that the ESG are created so that they do offer sufficient flexibility. They surely can cover anything that has to do with e-learning. They are also not determining the duration of accreditation period, so they allow for different lengths of accreditation as such. It just has to be regular. Whether it's 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, that doesn't really matter for the ESG. They do state that an external quality assurance process usually includes a site visit. Now, it is up to anybody's interpretation to say, how would you really understand the word site visit? So does it really mean that you have to physically travel? Does it mean you have to physically travel everybody to every procedure? So there is a scope for interpretation. As such, I don't really see that we really need to immediately run to change the standards. I think it's much more healthy to wait to see how things develop and then see what is the much, much longer term.
Thank you, Maria. Indeed, the question of the regulatory body is one that also interests me, because we do, of course, have existing instruments and standards also in Indonesia, but how much flexibility do we have, let's say, as agencies to also interpret those when it comes to words like site visits? I was wondering, how is this in Indonesia actually, Achan? Because for you, the shift was quite a drastic one. I know from previous discussions. Yeah, thank you. I know that you've had this discussion already in the country. How flexible are your national accreditation standards when it comes to this? Is this a momentous shift, or would you actually have to change something together with the ministry in Indonesia? Or how much flexibility do you have in your system?
Thank you, Sebastian. As far as the procedure and also the standard for the accreditation process, the decision is entirely inside, in the hand of BANPT, the National Accreditation Agency. Only before the COVID-19, our regulation stated that by definition of on-site visit, the assessor should be there, should come to the location where the institution is resided. So we propose to the Accreditation Council, Majelis Akreditasi, to make special adjustment to that particular item or article in our regulation. So they make that exception. So under special circumstances, the process of site visit can be done virtually. That will be that the new article been amended to the previous procedure and standard. I think that's all.
Yeah, well, indeed, this is good. If this is in the hands of the agency, then of course you have more flexibility. Now, this would obviously not be the case, let's say, in some more rigid systems. I'm thinking also about our friends and colleagues in say, Myanmar or Laos or Cambodia, possibly, where you don't have this flexibility in national standards. Now, coming to, and this is from a participant, or from several participants. They raised the issue of internet connection and support to universities, especially. We see it every day. We all have issues with bandwidth. How did you deal with this in your work? And feel free to raise your hand if there's any one of you who wants to go first. And would you have suggestions to universities and agencies here in the call how to manage this? I mean, obviously you cannot do more than get a good internet connection, but how do you deal with, say, universities in very remote locations, or if you do international accreditation, international assessments, how do you manage this except of course with a lot of patience and understanding? Anyone who wants to go first, please raise your hand. And Yeni, Yulia. Unmute yourself, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I would like to share the experience from a ENQA assessment, online assessment. They divide us become two. The first one home based, and another one campus based or university based. But for the lecturer, for the interviewee from lecturer, we decide for our university, we decide all of us in the campus base, but we divide them become two separate rooms. The first room consists of 10 lecturer and another room 10 lecturer. So that one is to make the problem of internet. There is no problem for the internet access. But if we want to do the home base, ENQA asks the interviewee, we have to, how to say, the reserve interviewee, 3% from interviewee have to, how to say, to solve the problem if some of them get internet problem. So we have to 3% from the all of interviewee, we have make a reserve interviewee. That's all. Thank you.
I have a follow-up to that, Yulia. So if someone cannot meet these requirements that are set from the side of ENQA, would this exclude him as an interviewee, or how would you deal with this? I mean, would you then require them to go to the university to actually join on-site? If someone cannot guarantee an internet connection of a certain speed at home?
Actually, before ENQA regularly meet with the study program with the quality assurance officer to test the, how to set the internet access, and then we decide. Actually, ENQA do not ask all of interviewee lecturer in the campus base, but we decide to only for the lecturer and supporting staff, not a home base and not the hybrid home base and university base, but all of lecturer, interviewee, and supporting staff interviewee in university base.
Okay.
That's
yeah.
moderator.
Thank you, Yulia. Pak Chan, yes, please.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sebastian. That's very legitimate and important questions. In the case of BAN-PT, we allow the university to decline, or to postpone, to request to BAN-PT that they are not ready because of the infrastructure, and then we will deal with that particular issue. Especially, we have the liberty to, for example, temporarily extend. And because of that issue is permanent in that area, maybe we have to wait until the COVID is over, you know. But if it is temporary problem, then we will have to wait until the situation gets better, you know. Now, during the briefing, usually we also give some practical tips to the institution, to the university. For example, we told them that if the video-based connection is too much, then simply switch to audio only, because for assessor, you know, in some part of the assessment, they don't really have to see the face, but at least the voice will coming out. And also, we tell them that the Android-based, like the handheld type of application, usually have better in terms of quality because of the connection technology. They are using 4G, LTE, that kind of technology, and require usually less, you know, less bandwidth, less demanding in terms of the bandwidth. That's.
Thank you. Yeah, indeed. These are challenges that in some cases we probably only can solve if we say we postpone and we hope for better times. Because these are obviously underlying issues that have not only to do with our institutions, but are a bit of the bigger picture. I think the next question would go to Ronnie. You mentioned in your presentation that from your experience at AQAS, you could see that what is missing from online site visits is, and I like this, I think this was brought into the Q&A by Maria, the pale dynamics. So how do you deal with this? When I'm talking about pale dynamics, I mean, of course, like informal interaction. You know, you see it now, you know, we have a Q&A, we have a panel discussion, but it isn't as interactive as it could be if we were all in one room. Now, of course, this has a huge impact when it comes to being able to assess the quality of an institution, of a program, and of course, in ENQA's case, especially on agencies. How do you deal with this, Ronnie, in your daily work at AQAS when you go into site visits online?
Yeah. Well, I think there are two different cases that we have to look at. The one is the interaction and the dynamics within the panel, and what we try to do there is we have separate rooms for the panel, like virtual rooms for their breaks, where it's very sure that nobody from the university is there, so that what usually can happen is they basically just sit and have coffee together. We make sure that there is real break time where they can do something, whatever they have to do, but then where there is also that let's just come together a little bit, and then while we are facilitating the process, we leave some room very particular for the panel to fill this room themselves. And so there is a little bit of the usual dynamic. It's all virtual, but this is as much as we can do. And sometimes we even trigger it by giving some input, so to encourage the usual interaction. And that's also very important for us because they need to know like who is taking the lead in which area. Besides all the formalities, they need to get to know each other. And the other option is the interaction with the university. And this is like understanding a little bit the dynamics there and get the informal knowledge there. And there is very, very little one can do. What we do is we do have one plan that is on the paper for the timing, but then we also have, particularly when it comes to the most important rounds, we do have some off times. So we like, it's very easy to say, okay, this is the meeting is wrap up, and then we still allow for a little bit of informal exchange where we make clear, like, you know, this is the formal part is over. It doesn't never take longer than 2-3 minutes so far, but this enables like somebody from the university to also say how excited they were or how nervous they were. So to give the opportunity to the institution to also talk about this, because it is so far still a very artificial situation, and by addressing this artificial situation we can try to break it. But I think this is the most limiting thing that we can do, because this is exactly what makes the difference of being there and having human interaction and going virtual. This is the most challenging aspect. And I do think that this really has an impact on the quality of an assessment, particularly when it comes to the case that there are problems. If everything is fine, everything is relaxed, you do evidence checking, this is easy. But if there is the moment when there are issues on the table that people don't want to talk about, it's very, very hard to do that in such a formal setting and in such a virtual setting. This is where we see limitations, I'm very sure.
Thank you, Ronnie. That's really interesting. Maria, I saw that you put something in the chat box. I would give you the opportunity to also say this, because I really liked it as it. So please go ahead.
We also realize that human dimension is so important, and of course the experts don't take part in the site visit just to get to have a travel and go to a restaurant and hang out with colleagues. No, there is a deeper motivation. This said, they do miss that human touch. So what we decided to do is that we sent them a little survival kit by post to their home address, which includes, of course, the technical materials, our guidelines, the standards, etc., but also some chocolate, little treats. And they are delighted. They are so happy. They feel really kind of touched by this human dimension and the care. They feel taken care of. And then they are there sitting behind the screen, opening the same box of chocolate that each one has received. And they feel connected by that. And we also organize little icebreaker things like at the beginning of the day, everybody sends a picture of their workstation. So you can imagine where each other is. Or then they say in a few words how they would have normally spent a working day if it wasn't for the site visit. So you get to know actually their normal work life as well a little bit. So it might take 15 minutes, but it's really 15 minutes well spent.
I think that ties in a bit with what I said at the beginning when I opened the session with, in some ways, it feels like we're getting even closer together, because suddenly we see each other's, I don't know, working space at home, and then sometimes the occasional kid comes in or a spouse that roams around in the background. I mean, of course, this would disturb the flow of business, so to speak. But I remember we had a roundtable discussion with several agencies in ASEAN, and suddenly someone's kid, sat on his lap, and it helped, the interaction, and it made the whole thing feel less stiff and more humane. And this is probably something that we all have to realize, that we have to, even if it seems artificial, include spaces where, we take into account this, let's say, this human aspect of all of our work. But Chan, if I may, now, this is a slightly critical question, which came from the audience, anonymously. It asks if you think that there is a deterioration of the quality of accreditation in Indonesia during the pandemic. I mean, this is an open question, and this was the other aspect of the question, or is there even an improvement? Because in some cases it might, that's what I thought when I read this question, lead to easier access, especially when I think about the geography of Indonesia, the large, huge distances, and what Hazman also said, maybe you now have availability of, let's say, some high-quality assessors from Jakarta that would otherwise not fly to Papua, maybe. So, Bachan, the critical question goes to you.
Thank you, Sebastian. Well, it's a little bit too early to conclude, whether there has been substantial drawback or downside or benefit. But some quick observation, as I said earlier, well, I didn't actually manage to say that. It's more flexible in terms of from two sides. from us, from the BAN-PT, for example, it sometimes easier to assign panel because they don't have to go there anyway, you know. As you mentioned, some panel member may have to think twice to go to a very remote area, but now because they don't have to go there, they can easily accept our assignment. And from the university standpoint, also they told us that it's easier now to invite, for example, your alumni, your employer, you know, to give the feedback, which was quite difficult before because they are so busy person to come to campus during the site visits. You know. So that's the benefit, the positive side of that. Not to mention, of course, a very substantial cost reduction because we don't have to fly the panel far away from from one point to another. But of course, as Ronnie and Maria already indicated, that there are some issues in terms of the quality-wise. We learn already when we validate the report. You know, some assessor they don't have maybe enough picture of the overall, you know, condition of the University of Study program, which implies in their report some inconsistency sometimes still there in terms of number of students. For example, in what point they mention one number, one figure, and the other side they talk about different figure. You know, that kind of inconsistent information more apparent, you know, during this virtual visit, which is not that many in the past. And also, I agree with Ronnie when we send our panel to the field. Usually, they have more, you know, interaction, not only with the university, but also between panel members. They have to talk during maybe lunch or during dinner about their impression, which is now becoming a bit limited, even though we allow them to talk and use our Zoom connection, you know, outside the office hour of the interview session. So all in all, I think there is a need to rigorously study this for BAN-PT in the near future to make adjustment. You know, one more thing, Sebastian. I read one of the question that the process that we do now didn't really take into account the new condition, the new model of learning happening during the COVID. So we still consider that the university are running in normal because the BAN-PT using past performance in terms of accrediting program or university, not the last 3 years performance, that sort of thing. So 6 months in compared to 3 years, we consider is still governed by the other.
So you've won the day for answering the most difficult question, I guess, and most critical. Now there is one I would like to highlight. This is coming from Myanmar. The chair of the National Education Policy Commission of Myanmar asks, and this goes, I think, to, well, he asked it specifically about the Indonesian experience, but I think it could be answered by anybody. Because it goes very much into the tools. What tools are you using? Do you go with the regular Zoom, or did you change, or did you maybe design your own software to go through with accreditation? I think in Indonesia you have Sabto and so on, which you can go into further detail. But maybe we can start with Ronny. How do you do this? Obviously, the German experience might be slightly different because in June, at least, we didn't have any cases, and now it goes up a bit. But what tools do you really use when it goes to hybrid or online accreditation?
Yeah. So indeed, we went back to partially physical site visits over the summer, but the tools that we use like anything that comes from ourselves as an agency, we use Zoom, and we are very keen on making sure that for every meeting that is possible, we are the host, because this is the only way we can basically control who is in, who is out, who is part of the discussion, and this is very important for confidentiality. We have some institutions who do have issues with using this platform for data protection concerns. Then they use their own platforms, WebEx. There is, I think, Blue Button coming up now, which apparently is better when it comes. Some people say so for data protection. But so we also use WebEx when it's coming from the university side, and there is issues there. But it's the platform that we use most. I think that the key is whatever system you use, you need to make sure that as the quality assurance provider, you are in charge. So you don't leave that to the university. Sometimes it's much more convenient, but you have the power to mute, to unmute, to let people in. You basically control the flow of the discussion, and I think this is very important. And this is also due to the fact that I think I said it earlier. It needs a little bit of different skills, because in a physical interaction, being very polite, sometimes you can use facial expression to navigate the discussion and encourage people. It's much harder online. So you need really to have control on all the tools that the system provides, and that's only possible once you're hosting and you're in charge.
Thank you, Ronnie. Maybe from Yulia, how is this managed at Andalas University? I mean, as a regional university in West Sumatra, I imagine you have special challenges, not only for the AUN, but maybe also for your internal processes when it comes to your institutional quality.
Yeah. Hello? Hello? Yeah. You mean about the quality, internal quality management for international accreditation, you mean, Sebastian? Because that's before not clear enough. Hello? Hello? Hello?
I think maybe we have
Hello?
used Andalas University.
Hello? Can you repeat again, Sebastian? That's not clear enough.
We might have some connection issues.
Hello?
Sorry, I think now the connection lets us down a bit. Sorry, Yulia. What I was saying is that it's about the technical tools and what you use at Andalas University. Do you have your own system, or are you using like the common systems? And is there lessons learned in that you can share with, let's say, other universities?
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, we design our own system, but for nowadays not run well enough. We already designed our own system, yeah, but still on progress because of some how to say it, the new issue. We have to edit again, revise again. Nowadays still in revision.
Thank you very much.
Can you hear
yes,
my
very
voice?
clearly. Thank you. Now I'm being very conscious of time, and of course I actually have probably around 20 to 30 more questions, both from the audience, but also from my own repertoire here. but I think we have to come to an end. It was a great pleasure for me to host this. It was really interesting. But I would give you a last opportunity to make a final statement, probably beginning alphabetically with you, Pachan, some final words, followed by Ronnie afterwards, and then Dr. Yulia. So, but Ronnie afterwards, and then Dr. Yulia.
Okay, so I think it's still kind of unknown zone for everybody for the future, especially in terms of quality assurance. But it will bring also opportunities that maybe we'll have to invent something new, totally new approach for QA in total, in particular for the external quality assurance. I'm foreseeing the use of technology, current technology like artificial intelligence, the big data, and learning analytics, that sort of thing, will be the opportunity for the future. And we may have to start thinking, pursuing toward that area. And in particular, it's in the hand of individual university to develop more, stronger internal quality.
To follow Chan, I think I can only echo what Chan mentioned. I think there is an opportunity. If we look back 1 year and would have thought what we would be discussing today, we would all be very wrong. But if we see what kind of a move digitalization made over the past month, how much we are all used to using video conferencing now, a tool that has always been there, not always, but that has been there for a while already. But we were all a little bit reluctant to use it and to implement it, and there was a push. We had no choice. And now we have to find a new balance. And I mean, there are some languages in the world where challenge and problem and opportunity is the same word. And I think this is exactly what we can see and focus on, because it will help us develop, and quality assurance should support that. External quality assurance should support this development and enhancement process. And I think that's our task now. To create transparency, to support the institution, and to make sure that this push that we have, this opportunity, does not leave unused. I think that's our job now.
Last words from Yulia. Anything to share? Final statement.
Okay, I think online assessment for accreditation certification is still have a challenge for all of study program, all of university, especially in Indonesia. Like I told you before, in ENQA, I see they provide one of verifier. I think for another agency, I think it will be better also to provide one of verifier, because if we do not know exactly about the university, about the location, about the facility, I think it's quite difficult to, what I said before, we put on the top trust, right? But we need someone that verify, that give the validation about the data, about the facility also. That's what I suggest.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Yulia. So unfortunately, we're at the end now. I've already given us a bit more time because we also started late. Now, usually, if this was a real physical live event, I would probably hand over tokens of appreciation now. to the speakers. In this case, it will just be a virtual handshake. Thank you very much for joining. And I mean, I enjoyed this a lot, really. I'm, of course, very sad that we couldn't really meet. It's been a while for all of us, some longer, some not so long. Also, as a final announcements maybe to our participants, please fill in our survey. This would help us a lot. I mean, we always strive to improve and get better ourselves, of course. Please take a note again of the privacy policy and materials. Please fill in this statement also. This would also help us a lot. My colleagues have indicated it already in the chat box. We have the PowerPoints accessible as a PDF. You can download it here. And I hope that you will all join us again next Monday, actually, when we focus more on higher education institutions, their experiences, their challenges, opportunities from their side, which will be moderated by my dear colleague Michael Hörig. We will see experiences from universities in Germany, the European University Association, but also from Indonesia. So please dial in again next week, Monday, when our second session starts. I think this is it. Goodbye, everybody. You may sign off now. So thank you very much, Ronny, Dr. Yulia, Pachan. I mean, it's really much appreciated for you to support us in this manner. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you very much.